Welcome, welcome. We are going to be working on this fun frame. So it has glass and this backing board, and we're going to paint the frame. It swivels, so it's kind of fun. We're going to paint the frame. We are going to paint this backing board, and we are going to put a transfer on it. So let's get started. So first, because I want this to dry well, we are going to paint it, and I'm debating between Algonquin and Oakum. So I'm thinking I'm going to use both. So I'm just going to squirt this directly on here. And I don't normally do a lot of blending with Fusion, just because it's an acrylic base and it's a little tougher. You have to work a lot quicker with Fusion, because once it dries, once that top coat dries, or once the paint dries, it's dry. With that built-in top coat and the acrylic base, you don't have the ability to play with it for as long, or to reactivate it actually. Okay. So if you can see that. I'm happy with that. It's got a little bit of a halo around the edge. So I'm going to put that aside and let that dry and clean up my mess. Okay, so this is layered chocolate from DIY Paint. Okay, let's pull this out, and let's make sure it's dry. When you're putting a transfer over paint, you want to make sure it's very dry. The reason also why I used Fusion paint on this is because of the built-in top coat, so I don't have to seal it before I apply my transfer. I like to seal chalk style paint with a clear coat of some sort, not wax, before I apply a transfer, just in case there's any residual moisture left in that chalk paint. Your transfer won't adhere to that. So, okay. So now which one I'm going to use. So this is the Holly Glen transfer set, and I'm going to use, I'm debating on these little mice, or maybe the little raccoons. I think I'm going to go with the raccoons. So just cut cut anywhere in the white space because that is not transfer. It's just blank space. Take the backing off, and then you want to kind of center I'm actually going to use this is a piece of thin mount, IOD's thin mount for stamping, but it's got grid lines on it. So I'm going to use that to help me visualize this oval straight. Because ovals can be tough to work with sometimes. I find anyways. There's nothing worse than putting something crooked on an oval because there's really nothing you can do about that. So then I can kind of eyeball my grid lines on my transfer with the grid lines on that thin mount. Doesn't have to be exact, but I want to get it fairly close. Okay. So I'm just going to take my pusher stick and I'm going to go over the whole design, and I usually start in the middle and work my way out. Be careful along the edges because you don't want to accidentally rub over your edge and then pull back and it grabs your paper or your backing and messes up your transfer because you've caused this big kind of crunch. So just always be careful when you're near edges. Okay, and then I just start pulling back from the top, and I can see that I'm not leaving anything behind on the backing grid paper, that it's all coming off. And be careful when you get to the very end, because sometimes it'll just kind of pop off at the end and then you end up with some left here. You can always go back and reattach it, but. And then I just take this same grid paper and I rub over the whole thing just to really burnish that image down. Make sure it's on there. All right. That turned out super cute. The colors are perfect. So that was Algonquin and Oakham, kind of a blend. And it just has that perfect little woodsy feel. So now the frame, it's almost dry. Okay. So now what I wanted to do is I'm going to seal this. I was going to wet distress, but I changed my mind because I'm going to go over it with the gilding wax after, so I don't need to wet distress. This is going to bring out all those details. Okay, so now this is DIY's Dark and Decrepit. And Dark and Decrepit has a built-in sealer. I'm actually going to use this brush because because I just used Big Top on it, so which is a sealer. So it's going to be fine. Have my baby wipe handy. So those of you that have been watching me for any length of time know that this is kind of my go-to. Oh, I don't like this brush for doing this. Oh well, we're gonna make it work. Where I stipple it on and then I go with a baby wipe and I blot it back. And that gives me that antique kind of a halo effect, or anywhere that I want to add that little bit of visual texture. The trick is that you don't want to create a pattern. I mean, unless you do. I don't. You just want to pull off product. And if you pull off too much, you can always go back over and reapply. That's one thing I have found when using specifically Dark and Decrepit or any kind of a glazy kind of product, is to do it in layers. If you want it to be really dark, I'll go in layers. So if you work in layers, like if you wanted to deepen the color, I would just let that dry and then come back with your Dark and Decrepit or whatever you're using as a glaze and go over it again until you get that depth of color that you're looking for. So I'm thinking I want to add a little bit of gold on here too, but for that, I'm not going to use the gilding wax. This is DIY's Golden Ticket, and this is the same formulation as the Dark and Decrepit. It just has different pigments in it. So this is just a gold. If I can get it open, there we go. I just want to add a little bit of bling. So same thing. I'm just going to add a little bit here and there, and then I'm going to take and see how that has given just a little bit extra. And again, less is more. You can always add more, but it's really hard to take it away once it's dried. And this just adds that little bit of bling over the Dark and Decrepit. And it pulls out the gold tones in the leaves and the foliage around the little raccoons. I'm so late to the game here with these transfers. I'm sold out. I only have the couple that I kept for myself. I think I kept 2 for myself. And I'm just now, this is the first time I've used this one. And I just used the Candy Cane Cottage one yesterday. I really like that. Okay, so let's give this a little bit of a dry. Put him aside. This guy is not quite dry yet, but pretty close. Okay, so with this, I'm going to be using the gilding wax. So this is a gold metallic gilding wax. And the difference with this is that I'm only wanting to apply this to the high points. So just kind of to highlight the design features on this little frame. So that's got kind of an antique-y, more of an antique-y feel, less of a 70s plastic feel, I think. Okay, so now this just has these weird plastic thingies to turn, just to kind of hold that in. There we go. And there it is. That looks so much better now than that 70s orange plastic. Perfect. I think it looks really cute. Thanks so much for joining me.